Welcome to Glisso English. Real life stories.
Imagine this. You buy a $3 coffee, hand the cashier a 20, and walk out. But later, you open your wallet and find $80 of extra cash. The clerk gave you change for 100. Nobody saw it. No cameras caught it. It's a victimless crime, right? Today, we are diving into a real-life situation that tests our ethics, the store clerk's error. What happens when keeping a lucky bonus means someone else pays the price? We're going to see how our main character, Marcus, navigates this exact crisis. As we follow Marcus's story, you're not just going to see how he handles this messy situation. You're also going to learn powerful, real-world English vocabulary, idioms, and phrasal verbs for handling conflict, debate, and everyday decision-making. Before we find out what Marcus does with the cash, hit that subscribe button, grab a notebook, and let's get started with Chapter 1. The neon sign of the convenience store flickered against the damp evening pavement. Marcus pulled his collar up against the chill, his mind completely preoccupied by a brutal shift at work. It had been one of those grueling days where every email felt like an emergency and every meeting dragged on forever. He was running on fumes, his thoughts a chaotic blur of deadlines and exhaustion. All he wanted was a simple bottle of water before the long bus ride home. He stepped inside the brightly lit shop. The store was eerily quiet, save for the low hum of the refrigerators. Behind the counter stood a young clerk, a teenager wearing an oversized uniform who looked just as drained as Marcus felt. The kid was rubbing his eyes, clearly struggling to stay awake during the late-night shift. Marcus grabbed a $2 bottle of water and approached the register. He pulled a crisp $20 bill from his wallet, the only cash he had left, and handed it over. The clerk took the bill mechanically, his eyes glazed over with fatigue. He punched a few keys on the register, and the machine beeped. Without a word, the teenager scooped up a small stack of bills and handed them back. Marcus, too tired to double-check, carelessly pocketed the change alongside his receipt. He grabbed his water, gave a polite nod, and hurried back out into the cold night air. He had no idea that a massive storm was already brewing in his jacket pocket. The bus was crowded, warm, and smelled faintly of wet umbrellas. Marcus found a window seat and watched the city lights blur together as the vehicle rumbled down the avenue. By the time he reached his apartment building, his stomach was growling fiercely. He decided to stop by the small vending machine in the lobby to grab a quick bag of chips before heading upstairs. He reached deep into his jacket pocket, feeling the crinkled receipt and the small wad of cash from the convenience store. He pulled the money out under the harsh fluorescent light of the lobby. As he started to flatten the bills to slide one into the vending machine slot, his fingers froze. He wasn't holding a single dollar bill and a handful of silver coins. Instead, he was staring down at a surprisingly thick stack of clean green paper. Marcus blinked hard, suddenly feeling wide awake as he began to count the bills one by one. A $20 bill, another $20 bill, a third $20 bill, and a fourth $20 bill stared back at him. He did the math quickly in his head, his heart instantly skipping a beat. The bottle of water had cost exactly $2, meaning he should have received $18 in return. Instead, he was holding $88. The exhausted teenage clerk hadn't just made a minor calculation error. He had mistaken Marcus's $20 bill for a $100 bill. Marcus stood entirely frozen in the quiet lobby, staring at the unexpected fortune in his hands.
Marcus walked into his quiet apartment, tossed his keys onto the kitchen counter, and stared at the cash. $80 extra was sitting right there, gleaming under the dim ceiling light. Almost immediately, a voice inside his head began to rationalize keeping it. He thought about his soaring grocery bills, his upcoming rent, and how hard he worked every single day for every penny. "It's a massive corporate chain anyway," Marcus muttered to himself, pacing around his small living room. The company made millions in profit daily, so $80 was practically a drop in the bucket for them. He convinced himself that it was a victimless mistake, a stroke of good luck to make up for his terrible week. But as he sat down on the couch, a nagging feeling of doubt began to creep into his mind. He opened his laptop and reluctantly typed a quick question into a search engine about retail cash register shortages. The search results instantly shattered his comforting illusions. Article after article explained that many stores force cashiers to pay back missing money directly out of their own paychecks. Even worse, a shortage that large could easily get a low-wage employee reprimanded or fired on the spot. The image of the exhausted teenager rubbing his eyes flashed vividly in Marcus's mind. This wasn't a victimless crime at all. A real person was going to suffer for this blunder.
Marcus turned off the television, but the silence in the apartment only made his thoughts louder. He laid down in bed and stared up at the dark ceiling, tossing and turning as the clock ticked past midnight. The 4 $20 bills were resting on his nightstand, practically glowing in the shadows. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the tired face of the teenage cashier. He imagined the kid going home, counting down his drawer at the end of the shift and realizing with horror that he was short. Marcus's conscience was working overtime, refusing to let him rest. He tried to tell himself that life isn't fair and that people have to learn from their own careless mistakes. But another voice countered, reminding him that true integrity is about what you do when nobody's watching. By 3 a.m., the money didn't feel like a lucky bonus anymore. It felt like a heavy anchor dragging him down. If he kept it, he would be buying his own comfort with someone else's misery and hard-earned wages. He rolled over, checked his phone, and realized there was only one way he was going to get any peace of mind. He had to go back to the store tomorrow and face the music, no matter how awkward it might be. As the first light of dawn finally broke through his blinds, Marcus closed his eyes, his mind firmly made up. The next afternoon, the weather was just as bleak, matching the heavy knot of anxiety tightening in Marcus's stomach. He walked back down the familiar sidewalk, his hand shoved deep into his pocket, tightly gripping the envelope containing the $80. As he approached the glass doors of the convenience store, his feet felt like lead and his palms began to sweat. He kept rehearsing what he would say, terrified of looking like a thief who had simply changed his mind after the fact. He pushed the door open, causing the overhead chime to ring out with an uncomfortably loud ding. The shop was much busier than it had been the night before, filled with delivery drivers and hurried customers. Marcus scanned the counter, but the young, tired face of the teenage cashier was nowhere to be seen. Instead, a sharp-eyed woman in a crisp manager's uniform stood behind the cash register, scanning items with ruthless speed. She had an intense, no-nonsense demeanor that immediately made Marcus want to turn around and walk right back out. He took a deep breath to steady his racing pulse and stepped into the back of the checkout line. With every step forward, the urge to slide the envelope back into his pocket and disappear grew stronger. It would be so easy to just buy a pack of gum, say nothing, and leave with the cash still in his possession. But he forced his feet to stay planted, knowing that turning back now would mean leaving his self-respect behind in this store. Finally, the customer in front of him paid and left, and the manager turned her piercing gaze directly onto Marcus.
"Next in line, please," the manager said, her voice sharp and efficient as she wiped down the counter. Marcus stepped forward, his throat completely dry as he cleared his throat to speak. "Hi, I actually have a bit of an unusual question," Marcus began, his voice faltering slightly under her steady gaze. "I was here late last night, and there was a young guy working the register, a teenager with dark hair." The manager's expression instantly hardened, her eyebrows knitting together as she stopped wiping the counter. "You mean Leo?" she asked, her tone shifting from professional to deeply frustrated. "If you're looking for him, he's currently in the back office with our regional director right now." Marcus felt a sudden spike of adrenaline as he asked, "Is everything okay?" "Not exactly," the manager sighed, crossing her arms tightly across her chest. "His register drawer was short by exactly $80 when we did the final count this morning." She explained that a discrepancy that large was a major violation of company policy. "He claims he doesn't know what happened, but unless we find that cash, we have no choice but to terminate his employment today." Marcus felt a wave of guilt wash over him as he realized just how close his hesitation had come to ruining a stranger's life. He knew he couldn't hesitate for another second. The truth had to come out right now.
Marcus didn't hesitate for another second. He pulled the white envelope out of his jacket pocket and placed it gently on the counter. "He's telling the truth," Marcus said clearly, his voice no longer faltering as he looked the manager dead in the eye. "Leo didn't steal anything. I'm the reason his register drawer was short $80 this morning." The manager looked at the envelope, then back up at Marcus, her sharp eyes widening in utter disbelief. Marcus quickly explained the entire sequence of events from the previous night, holding nothing back. He described how exhausted he had been, how he handed over a $20 bill, and how Leo had mechanically handed back change for $100. "I was too tired to check my wallet at the time," Marcus admitted, taking full accountability for the delay. "I only discovered the extra cash when I got home, and I knew I had to come back and return it to you." The manager picked up the envelope, opened it, and slowly counted out the 4 crisp $20 bills inside. The tense, frustrated expression on her face completely dissolved, replaced by a look of profound shock. In her 10 years of running retail stores, she had seen plenty of people try to cheat the system, but never this. "You have no idea what you've just done," she whispered, her no-nonsense demeanor completely vanishing. Without another word, she picked up her store telephone, dialed the back office, and told the director to halt the disciplinary meeting immediately. A minute later, the heavy door to the back office clicked open, and Leo stepped out into the main store area. The teenage cashier looked absolutely crestfallen, his shoulders slumped and his eyes fixed entirely on the floor. Behind him walked a tall man in a dark business suit, holding a clipboard and looking incredibly stern. The manager waved them over to the main register, a genuine smile breaking across her face for the first time all day. "Leo, look up," the manager said gently, pointing to Marcus and the stack of cash lying open on the counter. "This gentleman just walked in to solve our mystery and clear your name." Leo stared at Marcus, then at the $80, his jaw dropping as the realization slowly washed over him. Marcus gave the teenager a reassuring nod and explained to the regional director exactly how the error had occurred. "It was a completely honest mistake," Marcus emphasized, ensuring the director understood that Leo wasn't a thief. The director nodded slowly, crossing Leo's name off the official disciplinary paperwork on his clipboard. "Well, Leo, it looks like you've been granted a major reprieve," the director said, his harsh expression finally softening. Leo let out a massive sigh of relief, his entire body visibly relaxing as the crushing weight left his young shoulders. He looked up at Marcus, his eyes shining with profound gratitude, completely speechless at the stranger's honesty. The manager gave Leo a brief break to compose himself, and the teenager hurried out the front doors right behind Marcus. "Hey, wait up!" Leo called out, his voice cracking slightly as he jogged across the damp pavement to catch up. Marcus stopped and turned around, smiling as the young man grabbed his hand and gave it a fierce, emotional shake. "I just wanted to say thank you," Leo said, his eyes filled with immense gratitude. "If you hadn't come back today, I would have been fired on the spot, and it would have ruined everything for me." Marcus nodded understandingly, asking the kid why this specific part-time job was so critical to him. Leo explained that he was working 20 hours a week on top of high school just to save up for his college textbooks. "My family doesn't have much, and losing $80 of my wages would have set me back a whole month," Leo admitted. Marcus felt a cold shiver run down his spine, realizing how close his own selfish thoughts had come to derailing this kid's future. The $80 he had viewed as a meaningless lucky bonus was actually the key to a young person's education and dreams. "You did the right thing, man," Leo added earnestly. "A lot of people would have just kept the cash and never looked back." "To be honest, I almost did," Marcus confessed openly, choosing to be transparent about his struggle. "But I realized that no amount of free money is worth carrying around a guilty conscience." Marcus said goodbye to Leo and continued his walk home, his hands relaxed inside his jacket pockets. The heavy knot of anxiety that had been twisting in his stomach all afternoon was completely gone. His wallet was $80 lighter than it had been that morning, but his mind felt incredibly light and at peace. He looked around at the bustling city, realizing how easy it is to treat strangers like background characters in our own lives. It is easy to make excuses, to blame big corporations, and to focus entirely on our own immediate needs and desires. But Marcus had learned that true integrity isn't a passive trait. It requires active choices, especially when doing the right thing comes at a personal cost or brings no reward. He knew he would still have to budget carefully for his groceries and watch his spending over the coming weeks. Yet, as he unlocked his apartment door, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction that money could never actually buy. He had preserved his self-respect, saved a hard-working kid's job, and proven to himself what kind of man he truly was. The $80 was gone, but the lesson he gained in its place was worth infinitely more. Marcus smiled, sat down on his couch, and finally fell into a deep, restful sleep without a single regret. Marcus chose integrity over easy money, and in the end, doing the right thing saved a young student's future. It proves that real-life problems aren't always easy to navigate, but keeping a clean conscience is always worth it. Now it's your turn to practice. We used some powerful, advanced vocabulary today, like rationalize and transparent. I want you to go down to the comments right now and write one sentence using any of the vocabulary words from today's story. I will personally review your sentences and give you feedback. You can find all the vocabulary of the story down below in the description box. If you loved learning English through this real-life drama, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more stories just like this one. To keep expanding your vocabulary right now, click on this next story on your screen. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next story. Goodbye.